think the biggest thing I'd say is don't just focus on that one sport. I think if you put your entire identity into one sport, you're just setting yourself up for failure, right? Learn more movement skills, learn other things, enjoy being around other teams and being a part of other teams. I think you learn a lot from being a part of other teams. And so I'd say play more than just that one sport, and then really like take your physical development really seriously. Once you get to that college level, you know, yes, lifting's tough, training's tough, conditioning's tough, but the people you're going up against were the best 1 to 2 people you saw in high school on every team. That's every team you're going to go up against. So like if you're not taking your physical development seriously, it's gonna come back to bite you pretty hard, and you're not gonna have as much early success because now all of a sudden you got turned on. Now all of a sudden you got to like really take yourself seriously in the weight room and development side of things.
All right, back at it. Got Mark Jamison on today, coming from the great state of Illinois, Southern Illinois University, not at Carbondale, at Edwardsville. And
That's right.
what I like about our opportunity today is played as an athlete and similar to me, kind of a big nerd. And so been through a lot of things, learned a lot of things, not just, dumb jock, right? So he has the
That's right.
jock piece. And if you look at his overall his illustrious career, played all the basic sports. Had football, track, golf, all the different things. But took football a little bit further. Played D3, and kept with that. And then now he's training athletes. So if I read the entire title, which is significant,
Long
Associate
title.
Athletic Director for High Performance at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. Men's soccer is his main deal, but works with all 16 sports on a return to play. That's huge for today's call because most kids come up with some kind of injury at some point, small or big. And so there has to be a process for that. Oversees sports medicine, sports nutrition, mental performance, so all the things. And on top of that, he teaches courses in kinesiology. So big nerd, which is great. And right off the bat, my wife, when she watches the show, she's like, I would like that Tom Selleck stash,
Hmm.
and how come you don't have one of those, Jim? Mine's all gray. It matches the rest of the beard, but that's Tom Selleck stash is legit, bro.
I appreciate it. Yeah. The beard part's starting to get gray. That's why I shave that, and I just leave the stash part. But yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
For sure. When you back to your playing days, what do you miss most about playing?
I mean, I think being part of a team, right? But I think that also probably drove me to being a performance coach. Is just to be in that team environment, be a part of a team, be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. I think that's what you miss the most. Is it practice? Definitely not. Is it games? Yeah, for sure. But I think there's still parts of practice. There's still parts of training. Like, when we lifted, it was 5:15 a.m. Not a big fan of that, back in the day. That was around when pre-workout was just starting to come out, so you had like some kind of stuff to hit you to get you going. But that kind of stuff you don't miss, but you do miss being around your buddies. You miss working hard and people pushing you more than I think you thought you could be pushed. Is a big part of is probably what I miss the most.
From the armchair quarterback perspective, most people will assume it. Man, we miss the winning, we miss the competition, we miss getting far in the playoffs or something like that. And typically, when I talk to folks, they say they miss the relationships. Sometimes it's the coaches, sometimes it's definitely not the coaches. A lot of times it's the players, sometimes it's not. Definitely not every player, but it's usually like everything else in life. It's going to be the relationships. What was your welcome to college football moment? Because everyone's pretty good in high school that plays in college. And then once you're in college, no matter what level you're at, everyone's pretty decent, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's a whole different level you have to elevate to. What was your welcome to college football moment?
I mean, I think there's probably two that stick out the most. So like my high school, uh, my offensive line was almost the same size as me. So
Oh no,
you got one of those, yeah, and it's spread option, and I was running quite a bit, and everything's boot action. And then you get to college, and even Division 3 level, all those guys are 6'4" and above. They're all
men.
well over 250 pounds. I mean, it's so being able to like sit in the pocket and see over a line was something I hadn't had issues with before. So you had to learn that on the go for sure. I'd say the other part, time commitment. I think like yeah, as a quarterback in high school, you just go out and play. You kind of just read the defense and audible and whatever you need to. But the playbook was very simple. You go to college and the playbook is thick, and you
Mm.
got to do film review, and you think the day is done, but you got to come back for film. when everyone else gets to go back to the dorm and hang out. So that was probably the biggest shock was, oh man, like you really got to put the time in to be more prepared because obviously the competition levels are higher and defensive backs and they roll coverage a lot more. And there's a lot of just things you don't get exposure to in high school, at least in the small town I was at in Northeast Iowa. Um, that those are the things like, okay, I got to step it up and take this a lot more seriously than just going out and playing games.
It's also significantly different at the quarterback level. You know, the receivers have their route trees, or maybe it's some blocking schemes, the audibles, etc. But you're queuing off the defense. You're working in conjunction with the O line. Then you're getting the blocking protection, and then the receivers and their routes, and the running back at all. So obviously, got to know your job, but most people around you as well for you to be at all effective at that level.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you got to know exactly what the offensive line is supposed to do. And, just the different packages. There's a lot of packages. And, if you forget a package, all of a sudden you're a man down or you've got too many men or there's too many guys in line. It's just small things like that that you didn't have to worry about in high school as much.
Sure.
In college, you got to know the whole playbook front to back. Yeah.
Going back to your younger self, would you play the same sports? Would you take football as far as you could then, or would you pick a different sport? Anything that you do differently, being the wise guy that you are now?
No, I mean, I think I'd stick with the same sport now. And again, like Northeast Iowa, like we didn't even have soccer. We didn't have soccer. We didn't have tennis. Like there's a lot of sports that, there's just not enough people in the area to play and who are you going to go drive to play?
Hmm.
Um, the other sports I did was basketball and I like basketball now just recreationally. If it's like, hey, we agree we're going to play zone. It's a very relaxed game. Like I like basketball, but competitive wise, no, I wouldn't have picked that. Baseball I played a little bit, but then obviously like as a quarterback, all the camps, like travel camps and when you try to go to showcases and things like that, they're always in the summer. And in
Hmm.
Iowa, that's when you play baseball. So that wasn't really an option, just because it kind of got in the way. I really like golf. I played golf, but you did golf and track at the same time because again, just not enough people. And most of that was so you didn't have to go to track practice. You could go to golf practice and just show up for track meets. But yeah, the only other sport I think that I liked a lot and had some skill at was golf. That I think in my older age now, you're like, man, that was a sport that if I would have stuck with that and continue to pursue that's a sport that I can play for the rest of my life. Or football, it's definitely got its unless you're Joe Flacco, man, it's got an end point at some point for you.
For sure. Did I have those dad bod flag football leagues? Some of those guys are still pretty legit
Yeah,
as an adult, but man, the golf translates to so many things, whether you're playing in just a charity event or the corporate world or just for fun. You know, that's a piece that can live with you for a long, long time.
for sure.
How about advice? You got a freshman, sophomore in high school, and you say, "Hey, man, I wish I would have known these two or three things."
I mean, I think the biggest thing I'd say is don't just focus on that one sport. Like I think if you put your entire identity into one sport, you're just setting yourself up for failure, right? Learn more movement skills, learn other things, enjoy being around other teams and being a part of other teams. I think you learn a lot from being a part of other teams and playing other sports. So I'd say play more than just that one sport and then really like take your physical development really seriously. Because once you get to that college level, you know, yes, lifting's tough, training's tough, conditioning's tough, but the people you're going up against were the best 1 to 2 people you saw in high school on every team. That's every team you're going to go up against. So like if you're not taking your physical development seriously, it's gonna come back to bite you pretty hard, and you're not going to have as much early success because now all of a sudden you got turned on. Now all of a sudden you got to like really take yourself seriously in the weight room and development side of things. And I mean, we know that takes at least 3-4 months to truly see some adaptations, and that's the whole season if you're looking at football by the time you come in. So I'd say those big things is make sure you're playing more than just that one sport, exposing yourself to other movement skills, and when you train hard.
Like a lot of that, and it's absolutely spot on. I come across, and you might as well come across in high school or even younger, travel coaches that have a different philosophy. And so, how do you work within that? Or it's hard to say, hey, there's only one way to do things, but broadly, there really is one way to do things, and that means different sports, neurologically, physiologically, you can't argue with the results. And then strength and power and speed wise, it takes time. You can get better shape pretty quickly. It takes time to go from a 100-pound squat to a 200 to 300 to a 400-pound squat, and then power cleans and speed and all that jazz. So how do you mesh with the other coaches that say, hey, man, Mark, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. They need to be playing volleyball, soccer, baseball 10 months a year.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part, right, is it's a money game. A lot of it is if you're looking at showcases, right? If you're looking to get seen and have highlight reels and get in front of recruiters and things like that, you do have to do all those like AAU leagues and things like that. Outside of, I mean, around here, to be honest, like half the sports you don't even play for your high school team, you play for some club, right? Like, and that is a year-round commitment. Um, you got to meet them where they're at. I think it's one of those things you can't just say, well, don't do the travel ball and just play another sport instead. That's not going to happen. That's not realistic. So what I would say then is go seek out a strength and conditioning professional. That's not, say you're a volleyball athlete, don't go to a jump coach. Don't go to somebody else who all they're going to do is have you jump more and all they do is focus on plyometrics. You get enough of that at practice. Go to strength and conditioning coach who's going to build strength, who's going to improve your capacity to withstand heavier loads and higher forces to be able to have higher outputs more continuously. Your practice is going to improve from that. Your natural sport skill will improve because you have the ability to do those at a higher rate and do those more, have more sustained outputs. So that's what I'd say is, if it just doesn't work, again, don't be unrealistic with, hey, just don't do that one season of travel ball and play another sport. Let's get movement skills from a strength and conditioning professional who's certified, who isn't going to just try to be a sport specific guy because you're already doing too much sport. All right, so let's find a guy who's going to build general capacities and foundational movement patterns and strength and things that you're not getting exposure to. There's a lot of buckets that don't get filled if you only play one sport.
For
So
sure.
find a person that's going to fill those other buckets for you.
Whether you're a car or a business or in a relationship or a company where there's all these different factors, everything has some kind of limiting factor. And everything has some kind of strength that they do well, and their strengths are whatever they're best at. That's going to be their competitive advantage. That's just right out of business school, but it's also for an athlete. Maybe the person is really really fast, straight ahead and laterally, but they don't know the playbook, limiting factor. And if you're always doing the main thing, well, your competitive advantage is going to be going high and the skill component. But if you can't pick up the bar, if you can't squat or bench or press or deadlift the bar, you have no chance to advance, right? Now, on the flip side, if you're just big strong ox, right, can move a ton of weight, but you can't move it all laterally, you have no speed, you have no agility, you have no skill, then you're just a big dumb ox, right? And I identify with the ox having done a lot of strongman stuff. It's a lot of fun. So my advice is similar to yours in that, hey, just take a moment, man. Sit down for an hour and just take a look. Is it my mindset that's holding me back? Is it knowledge of the sport? My shit teammate? Is it my training? Am I too weak? Am I going to be susceptible to injury? Is it my nutrition? That's everybody probably. And then, or recovery. Those are the six things we talk about. Something there has got to be holding you back pretty decently. And once you start addressing that, now you got a chance to keep evolving. But what I find is that everyone keeps going in the same pattern. They don't take a breath to look around and say, hey, man, maybe I shouldn't be doing all this in one area. It gets too concentrated. Do you see any trends in the high school or now that you're working the college level? Any trends you see with kids coming into college and the students you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the biggest trend is, to your point, they don't take time for themselves. Their schedules are full. When they get here from class schedules, from practice, from weights, you're looking at 8 hours a day that are already taken
Mm-hmm.
up for you. And when we talk to them, it's okay, how do you fill the rest of your day? Right? To your point of nutrition, sleep, recovery, things like that. They fill it with social media. It's just wasted time on screen. So even when you could be physically relaxing, mentally you're just draining yourself because all this stuff is just high dopamine response. It's stop doing this, or it's very fast. Lots of colors, lots of loud noises, music, things like that. That's not allowing your brain to recover, right? So we see like physical preparedness. It's not hard to quantify that. We can show you. We'll get you at some point in your career with us at the strongest you've ever been, the fastest you've ever been, the most fit you've ever been. but maybe you're not competing to the level you used to even in high school. It's because there's just not enough mental readiness. You're just fried. And to your point, right? Like when do you take time off?
Hmm.
If you're not allowing yourself some free time. So we try to push time management really heavy early on, to where we have you write down, okay, what are the things out of your control? Well, you can't control when class is, you can't control when weights, when practice is. Okay, what are the things out of your control? So now I can take a look at, okay, when are my fueling opportunities? When am I going to eat throughout the day? When am I going to do homework? When am I going to have social time? But the biggest thing is, when do I have free time? And when a lot of these kids actually write that down and they look at their schedule, there is zero me time or free time because they just fill it with a bunch of wasted time. So I think that's probably the biggest thing we see is they don't even know how to manage their own time because it's just been dictated for them.
Sure.
So teaching them, okay, how do you manage your own time so you can be mindful, you can work on mental performance skills, you can actually recover. You can spend time away from just poor things like, again, social media and stuff like that it's not helping you. It can be a good 5-10 minute distraction, right? But you still have to have mindful time and time for you. So getting them to even recognize that. And hey, if you pull up your screen time and it's over 6 hours, which they all are, we got a problem we got to start with right there. Let's start with that and slowly chunk that away as much as we can.
Yeah, I was working with these kids, East Coast, and they they made it a competition with their football team. These two kids, I forget their last names. They championed it. They wanted to compete with everybody on the team and how recovered they could be. And so
Good competition.
the people in the group would get like a Whoop or some other tool. You can also just quantify things, but they would get made fun of. Oh, you're going to bed early. You're not going out thirsty Thursday. Doing all these things. And what they said, so the two brothers were made fun of at first, which is typical when someone sees something doing something different. And what they were the teammates were witnessing was the kids were coming into the weight room early because that's when their lift schedule was. No one lifts all at once, and they were refreshed. And they were just like pushing numbers and pushing weight, and their velocity based numbers were up, their raw strength numbers were up, and it's like, oh man, what's going on? And they're like, I know we come in so rested that what we're doing right now has now become pretty easy.
Right.
Now,
Yeah,
the maturity needed to make that decision, right, is high, right? And if you have a strong why, hey, I'm trying to get to this next level, then it's not like a question, could I or should I do it? It's like, okay, just tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. So you're right, man. They can, and I find it's true, myself included with coaches, where I could sit there and coach every session, look at videos of people training, pour in more knowledge, talk to people like you, and then it's like, hey, man, if I don't recover and the next day, like, I don't come in energized as a coach.
yeah,
I don't come in energized to lift. I don't come in energized to be a spouse, right? So it's always not how hard do you train, how hard do you train, recover, and then train hard. So I got to believe if they come in a little bit physically underdeveloped and they're not recovering and they're playing a college sport, you as a return to play specialist, you will have opportunities and job opportunities and money coming at you forever because there's too many problems for you to fix.
exactly. It's like being a mortician. You know there's always going to be business, right?
There's always going to be
Um,
business here, yeah. So
right, right.
different sports, different. Some are changing direction sports, some are not, right? But you see trends there in the injuries.
Oh,
With
for sure.
let's
Yeah,
let, let's
and
hear
it's.
let's hear about those.
I mean, to be honest, and again, it goes back to the multi-sport, right? The athletes who did play multiple sports throughout their youth and in high school, they do tend to have lower injury rates, and they do tend to recover faster. And again, I think a lot of that is you're not having to reteach them certain motor skills. They've built other capacities and strengths just because they had different movement patterns that were required of that other sport they competed in. But I think the biggest trend that you see of highest injury rates, you look at the teams with, in college, you have your 8 hour period and your 20 hour period. So you can have in an in season, preseason, in season period, you can have up to 20 hours of mandatory activity, whether that's practice, weights, competition, all that stuff. The teams who tend to have that close to 15 hours a week that they're practicing and they're on court, they're on field, whatever it is, those teams always have higher injury risk. And it's no surprise. I mean, it's just, we look at basketball practice alone. And if you quantify, through GPS and other things, the amount of foot contacts they have at different speeds they move at, you have close to of a 3 hour practice, 3 million pounds of ground reaction force per limb. I mean, how the hell are you supposed to prepare them for that? We cannot. You could give me 4 years to strength train somebody. I cannot prepare you for that amount of force that your body has to
Absorb.
withstand.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I think that's one of those things, the sports that I think are more cognizant of that spend less time on feet. And when they are there at practice, they're very intentional with it. The teams that play fast or practice fast, right? So when they start, it's not this slow, you got 45 minutes to an hour of just really slow technical. It's a lot of up, a lot of down. And then they're like, all right, now let's go hard. And they're always like, why do our athletes move slow? Well, you train them to move slow because they're in a fatigue state by the time you want them to go fast. If you start fast and kind of take what you see in the live action component of practice, if you take that and that becomes kind of the ramp back down of some individual work or some small group work on the back end instead of starting with it, those teams tend to be healthier. So a lot of it's a combination of, are the athletes prepared for this, and what does the actual workload look like from a coaching standpoint. And I think the athletes think they're ready for it because they had, you know, travel ball, plus they played their high school with their high school team. So they've had a lot of sport exposure, but it's not been at this intensity and it's not been against this level of competition. So you,
Sure.
you aren't ready for it.
Right. The physicality behind it is going to be different. There's more volume, but also going against, grown ass men. So, you could be a 17-year-old getting to college going against a 23, 24-year-old, especially the year, the COVID year, when people got a sixth year.
COVID year and then the JUCO year they did last year.
Right.
Everybody got an additional year for that. I mean, we
It's
had some
good.
25-year-olds.
My goodness. So it was funny, like, not funny, it's interesting. If I'm a big West Side barbell guy, they talk about the max effort work. Max effort is just, moving the heaviest weight possible, right? But even the lighter days, the dynamic effort days, you're still moving as fast as possible. So it's still, you're moving as you're trying to exert as much force as possible. And to your point, if you have the harder parts of practice, the more intense, the max, I'll call it a max effort component where you're as intense as possible. No one wants to do that at all when
Right.
they're tired, right? And
Yeah.
no one does it. No one runs a 5K and then comes in and maxes out their deadlift, thinking, "Hey man, this is going to be great." We had Brett Agnew on. He's a assistant coach with Indy Ignite, a pro women's volleyball team here in
Hmm. Hmm.
Indianapolis. He had a funny story in that I think he was a coach at Bowling Green in Ohio, and for some problem, the bus got to the next school, which was Toledo, late, and it was a volleyball team. And normally they show up plenty of time early. They go out, they do their drills or warm ups, blah blah blah, and they might have like almost like an hour of work. Well, they showed up so late. They got there, they got dressed, they went out there. They had like 5-10 minutes to do the absolute basics, and then they were playing. And both teams were evenly matched. So it went to a fifth set, and the head coach turns to Brett and goes, "What's going on here? How come we're smashing them now?" And he goes, "You know what? We just don't look tired because we didn't do a whole hour of what
Practice before.
of
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
before the actual competition. Like we took down the volume a little bit so the intensity could be higher later when they needed it. To your point. Ah, there are more specific trends in the return to play issues. Is it all ACLs? Is it all elbows? Is it all shoulders? Is it low back? Can you see it, or is it more sport specific, or anything like that you could quantify and say, hey man, here's a problem, and I'm fixing you on the back end. I wish you would do X on the front end.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say ACLs across any sport. That's not one that really picks a sport. Otherwise, yeah, it is more sport specific. Our wrestlers, our baseball guys, it's definitely going to be more elbows, more shoulders. Our court-based athletes like basketballs and soccers and field-based sports, you're going to have a lot more of your lower shank. So, we'll see a lot of, stress reactions. We'll see a lot of soleus or Achilles type issues. You'll see more of your adductor, hip flexor, hamstring kind of issues, more soft tissue side. But yeah, ACL is by far the biggest one across any sport. And to be honest, the probably 75% of the rehab training shouldn't be sport specific. It should be athlete specific. Um, and selfishly, that's why I like return to play. I If you look at anybody who's come out of return to play, and I think people who do it right or do it well, and there's a lot to do. You should come out of that the strongest you've ever been, the fastest you've ever been, the more balanced you've ever been, the most fit you've ever been. Why? Because again, we remove the sport, right? It's the most dedicated time you've ever trained in your entire life. You look at an ACL, it's most surgeons are not going to clear you for full participation until 9 months. So really, for at least 6 months of that, you haven't been doing any practice. You've just been training
Mm.
and you've just been doing fitness work. And whether that's 3 or 6 days a week, you haven't had the sport getting in the way. So you don't have all this level of just fatigue from a neurological standpoint, from a neuromuscular standpoint. You are actually in a recovered state. So we can train. When we train hard. Um, and I think that's a big benefit for a lot of these athletes coming out of a return to play processes. This is a time to truly work on you because no program is really individualizing everybody. It's impossible to.
Impossible.
There's not enough human resources. We can do force play testing. We do a lot, biomechanical assessments, and we can give you a different variation of an exercise that's maybe more orthopedically sound to you, but it's not individualized. This is the most individualized training there's ever been. So we see a lot of these athletes come out of it and things that might have had, been nagging injuries. They've always had ankle issues or they've always had low back issues. They don't have that coming out of return to play because we had time to address them, especially if it's an ACL, right? Like we work the proximal and distal. We work your lumbopelvic complex. We work your foot ankle complex and the calf complex heavily while we're, essentially restricted with the amount of knee flexion and extension that you currently have. So those are huge benefits coming out of that. And I'd say that the biggest trend of those who come out of return to play successfully and those that don't, the two biggest components, one, nutrition. I think most kids think when they get hurt, my activity levels have dropped, so I need to eat less food. You should eat more in that early return to play process than you do when you're a healthy athlete at full competition. Because the amount of work your body has to go through to repair itself
Mm.
is significantly more than it has to do to recover from a 2 hour practice. And so getting them to understand that of, okay, how much food, how many calories do I actually need? What should those calories look like is a really important thing. And if they take that seriously, you'll see that they recover a little bit better. The second one is essentially it's, being overly focused on the injury itself and having kind of this pain, fear avoidance. Those are huge things, right? And I think if you don't address that fear avoidance, they're always going to be thinking about the injury. That's going to create compensations. If they're always thinking about the injury, are they fully locked in from a cognitive standpoint or sensory motor standpoint of their sport skill when you reintegrate them there? Um, and I think that's one thing that you got to normalize pain. I think everyone thinks, oh, I shouldn't be in pain. Well, don't play sport then. If you're playing a sport, like at some point your body's just a scale of 1 to 10, you're always a 1, 2, or a 3, right? You're rarely ever like a 0. I feel fantastic. So normalizing pain in that process and being able to train through that kind of decreases or inhibits that fear avoidance that they might have to load that limb. So now they can actually move a little bit better. They'll actually apply more force. They're more willing to jump into more some of the controlled but chaotic settings of the sport skill a lot earlier on if you can address those things. So those are probably the two biggest trends: is those that take the mental performance side really seriously, and those that whether they eat good food or not, if they're eating enough calories, tend to respond really well.
Well, I'm listening here actively, and I'm trying to, there's 3 or 4 points that you made that I really loved about the recovery and getting better. There's, as a different example, there were a couple powerlifting meets I had to do. Well, I wanted to do, I signed up to do, but about 10 days out or 2 weeks out, I go on vacation with my wife to Colorado, and we're just kind of hanging out, hiking a little bit, having some beers, sleep as much as I want. I would find a local gym and I might hit my openers, work up to maybe 80% for one, go home, completely unfulfilled, from a competitive standpoint, which is what I tell people. Come back, a week later and you hit your numbers, you hit new personal records, you just feel so much better. So I totally get that. We had another athlete on, an All-American thrower, and he tore his bicep and his pec. And the one doctor said, "Hey man, you got to be immobilized. Don't move at all. Don't move at all. Your whole body." And this guy's a PhD neurologist. He's like, "Yeah, that's wrong. You want white blood cells flowing." So he would be immobilized, but the rest of his body, he would do some kind of work to get blood flow. And so he recovered and he was eating well. I didn't think about the keep it in the same amount of calories or more. I do tell people that injuries can be a gift because it gets you to stop moving, figure out what you're not doing well, and fix a whole bunch of problems at once. At the same time, you can improve some areas that maybe you sucked at. So maybe you do improve some mobility pieces in other parts of your body, or you do improve your nutrition habits and learn some things. But there's some ways where you can take that setback and really come back way better. And to your point, competing is not healthy. Competing is not, hey, this is easy and fun playing pickleball, drinking beer, right?
Right, right.
Like you're trying to win, which means you are going to be in pain training wise or on game day. Or I remember Dan Campbell said, hey, on the first day of practice for the Detroit Lions, this is the best day you're ever this is the best you're ever gonna feel today.
For sure. Yeah.
So come February, you might feel this way again when everything's over with. My goodness. What about you kind of touched on this a little bit. I tear my ACL. I'm doing all the things. My whole right leg is better. I'm worried about you. You and I are both worried about overcompensating with my left leg. So now both legs, physically, I'm optimized. I
Hmm.
got great range of motion, great strength, great power, can move laterally, can move straight ahead. But in the back of my head, I'll be thinking, "Fuck, man, I tore the ACL," and,
Yeah,
that my other one could go out too. So if it's my right knee, then maybe it's my left ankle or my left hip that compensate. In the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. So then you hesitate, you don't go full tilt. You might put yourself in a bad position on the field or on the court because you're hesitating. Talk about the mental side of getting that athlete back where they were before, but also we're not always just looking in the rear view mirror. Maybe we want to be advanced, where we come
hmm,
in like, hey man, I've been hurt before, but now I'm way better. I can attack. Talk about the mental side and building that up and the habits and the process for that.
yeah. I mean, it's huge, and we started from the very beginning. So say it is an ACL, right, and you have surgery, you should start that from day one after the surgery. Um, and really, what you're focused on there is, for a lot of us, right, we focus on the end game, right? That's just kind of how we are, especially as athletes. You're always kind of focused on the competition and not always the process, right? Sometimes you just kind of go through the motions with the process because, again, you're just told, when and where to be. So for them, in their mind, I'm not getting to play my sport for 9 months, right? So they're already in this just negative mindset. Uh, and really, what you want to do then is, okay, can we redirect that? So there's skills like reframing, right? So anytime, which is simple, right? Hey, I come to weights and my thought is, oh, fuck, I don't want to lift, like it's too early, and reframe that, right? Like, what's an opportunity to get better day, and just different ways to have a better mindset about things. But a lot of that kind of comes from, this is probably the first time that they've actually paid attention to their own feelings and emotions. So a lot of times it's start with journaling. Journaling and goal setting early on are two really big things. So your ability to just self-reflect, which I think once you come out of return to play is massive. So when you're back in the sport competition and things like that, your maturity level is so much higher because you're able to actually challenge yourself, and after game, after practice, what were the things I did really well? What are the things I want to celebrate? What are the things I struggled with? Was I a good teammate today? Did one of my teammates help me today? What did I do to make the team better today? Right? Start to again think about the bigger picture. And if you're able to address those things, then, okay, I didn't like what I did here at practice, or I didn't like how I responded to this situation. If you don't actively think about that or write it down, you're not going to improve that. You're just going to continue to do the same thing every single day. So that's a big component we start with early on, is just that journaling, make that a process, make that a habit that you just get used to doing. And then goal setting again, right? Let's focus on the small goals. Because again, our biggest goal for everybody, it's a collective agreement on, we want to get you back to playing your sport. Well, let's focus on what can we do right now. So in the first 2 to maybe 4 weeks, depending on the surgeon, you might not even be able to be active, right? Because they want a lower risk of infection rate, things like that. So our goal setting is going to be probably based around nutrition, right? I'm not hungry. I might be taking some of the pain medication, which is going to make me constipated. I mean, the whole process sucks, right? But can I at least continue to make sure I'm getting enough calories? Can I make sure I'm fueling every 3 to 4 hours, things like that? Those are the small things you start with, and then once you get back into training, to your point of the pec and the bicep, as early as we can do unaffected limb training, we do, right? That cross education is a really impactful thing, and we have surface EMG that we'll use here, and it's really fun to actually see that, Like with the shoulder, if you put it on infraspinatus on the surgical arm, and the other arm is just doing grip work or it's just doing rotator cuff work, you'll see muscle activation on the other side, right, in a completely static state. So let's get that process going early. So we handle a lot of that. So now that you're getting back into activity, we have to increase our mental performance skills. So now we can kind of start to focus on, what is my confidence? What's my leadership ability? Because at practice, I still want you to be involved, right? I think that's the hard part for a lot of athletes is they feel like, okay, I'm just sitting on the bench and just watching. Their posture is really bad. I mean, right? Like bad posture leads to negative emotions, right? Which is going to lead to negative habits and feelings. So can we get them actively involved in practice? So we try to get them involved in film sessions. Can they help with the scout of the team they're about to play? Can they be a leader on the bench? Can they kind of coach their teammates? Can they call them out if, hey, I feel like you're bullshitting today. You're not giving it all you got today. Like getting them involved that way makes them feel like a leader, keeps them involved, keeps them positive, keeps them happy. And then as they continue to progress, it's just a lot of skills of, now we have to get into more of the confidence side of things. Now I have to get into more of the where's your commitment at, which again is kind of that fear apprehension. Is there inhibition of that muscle because of pain or because of your perception of the pain? So how can we again get you to uh, not deflect necessarily what that pain is, but again, recognize the pain is a normal part of the process. And how can I again reframe that? If I have a negative day, how can I see that as a growth opportunity? What about today was negative or that I didn't like? What are the things that I could change that will make the next day better? It kind of goes back to your example that the two brothers that were taking their sleep more seriously, they were going to bed early, taking their nutrition seriously. If you actually start to track those things, which most athletes don't do, again, a lot of that comes from journaling. But if I start to actually track those things, oh man, I felt like shit the last 3 days. Well, I didn't sleep more than 6 hours. I was up too late. I was on my phone too much. I didn't eat for an 8 hour gap throughout the day at one point. Even if you just change one of those things the next day because you took the time to reflect on that before you went to bed, okay, maybe I'm still going to be on my phone. I'm still going to go to bed too late. But if I make sure that I pack food in advance or I know I'm going to go get food in between, you're going to feel better the next day. And then if we can do that a couple of days in a row, now can we start to limit the screen time, or can we challenge ourselves to set an alarm on your phone at 10:30? Let's start the process to go to bed. So those are a lot of the more mental performance side of things, or just the habits that they need to create in that return to play process that we try to push, but we push them immediately. We don't wait until you're training. We do it before you start to train.
Mm. Gotta love that. That encapsulates the phrase on my shirt, win the day, and what we
Hmm.
try to be about in that when you're an athlete and you're playing a sport, I mean, if you get injured, you say, well, I'm not playing anymore. I said, no, you're still playing. You're playing right now. You're still competing today. And, you might have a 12-game season in football, but there's days where you are competing every day. And so now you're competing on winning your recovery. If you're becoming a better leader on the bench and now you're on the field, now you're a better leader and physically you're better. You developed a leadership component you didn't have. And then I'll hear, well, that person's ahead of me right now. So, now I got to catch up to them. And I said, well, let me ask you this, athlete. What would you score yourself out of 100 right now? And they would say, 80. I said, are you the starter? I said, yeah. So the guy behind you is scoring below 80, right? Did you plan on staying at 80? Like, no, you wanted to go, right? So why don't you push somebody next to you to 84? And then, so when you come back, you're chasing and you go to 86 or 88. If you're
Hmm.
always in the lead and someone's always behind you, you don't really push as hard. But yes, so if you get someone next to you better than you, you're now required to step up in all the different areas. And a lot of times, like my son's last game is going to be Saturday. He plays for football for Ball State. A lot of people come Sunday, they're like, "Shit, man, what do I do? Who am I?" The journaling comes in. You have these thoughts all along, helps you with your mindset, focus. But there's some things that he can win on Sunday. He could still eat well. He can still recover and then um, pass some more information on to the people behind him when he's leaving a little bit of legacy, right? Next Monday, he could still train. So if you're always looking at that Kaizen approach of trying to get better and better a little bit at a time, you're never done. You're never done. So you frame it like that. I love that. You said you're reframing things. Yeah, you're still competing today, even though you're on the table. So I love that. I really appreciate the effort you put in your homework here to prepare for today, and I see the part about building your knowledge. You write down, you write right off the bat, you wrote reading, and you can see the small fraction of books behind me, right?
Yeah, yeah,
There's like 200 behind me, but my wife and I, we have 1,100 total. And I like to read. She loves to read. And you wrote down, Think Again by Adam Grant, Next Conversation by Jeff Fisher, but never split the difference of the three. That's one of the ones I've read. Talk, just mention. I have not seen someone mention that yet, and it's nothing to do with strength and conditioning, return to play, but it's about negotiating and talking with people, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so, talk about your thoughts about that book or what you can remember of it, because maybe it's been a while, but why you found value in that piece.
I think the big thing, right, is like it early in my career, every book you read it's strength and conditioning, it's West Side Barbell, it's
Right.
triphasic training, it's all these things, right? Which is great, I think, early on. But again, that's so just blinders on, focused on coaching.
Yeah.
And coaching isn't X's and O's. Anybody can write. I've seen plenty of, to be honest, plenty of really bad, what in my opinion, bad programs that are run really well because they're coached well. Now, you're not going to learn about coaching from those books. Coaching, I think, is again, it's just relationship building, it's building trust, right? What's that all boiled down to is always communication, right? So
Coming out of
what
the
I
mouth.
really like,
Yep.
yeah, what I really like about Never Split the Difference is from a negotiation standpoint, and if you tie in kind of Adam Grant's Think Like a Scientist, in his book Think Again, he talks about, we have the three P's: you're a preacher, politician, or prosecutor, or kind of the mindsets we always have, right? So any conversation, you're trying to win, you're trying to win a conversation, which is never a good start. You're trying to convince somebody to your side, which isn't a good start, or you're willing to flip flop just so that the conversation is over. Well, no outcome of any of those kind of mindsets is going to work. So what I really liked about what he put in that book was, from a negotiation standpoint, is active listening.
Yes.
Right, pay attention to what that person's saying, because if you allow them just to talk and you show that you're actually listening and you repeat those things back to them,
Mhm.
now you can actually have a conversation.
Mhm.
Right, now it's not a debate, it's a dialogue. And I think that's the most important thing, is if we truly, you know I think we could say, hey, I'm a coach, so you need to respect me as an athlete. Well, I have to, build that respect, I have to build that trust. And a lot of that is actually active listening. And then when you do have these conversations with kids, can you have if you can't have the small conversations every single day, you're never going to be able to have the difficult conversation. Right. And so I think that's one of the big things that I kind of got from that was active listening, but it's almost like listening with compassion, right? Try to understand where that person's at today. Cause it's easy if a kid shows up late to just want to motherfuck them, right? Just, punish them right away. And like, it's their fault. Or we can ask them questions, right? And allow them an opportunity to kind of just tell me what's going on. Cause probably something's going on, something bigger. And that right there is a huge moment for that person. Because if you went straight to screaming, yelling at them and punch them, they're going to continue to do that. They're going to continue to show up late, or have these bad habits. Where if you listen to them and you kind of, have a good back and forth dialogue, they're going to respect you significantly more. So they're not going to want to disappoint you. They're not going to want to let you down. And now you understand where they're at, right? So now I can ask better questions because I actually listened to kind of where they're at and didn't see it as an excuse right away. So I think that's probably the biggest things I kind of got from that, right? It's just, I think it's tough. Everyone says they communicate, and I interview a lot of people, and in my role here, and everyone says communication, and all I say, what does that mean? What does that look like? Explain to me, like, give me a scenario of where you communicated well, and what was the outcome of that? Because most people don't have a response to that. They just say communication. It's just a tagline everyone uses. But a lot of times I could say something, and what I thought you were going to get from that, you didn't get from it. So that wasn't communication. That was just me spitting words into the atmosphere, right? Because you took nothing of what I wanted from that, right? And I think most of poor communication comes from us as the coaches, because we don't actively listen. I should repeat back what you just said to me, and if I do, then you as the athlete, or whoever the person you're talking to, feels like they were heard,
Hmm.
right? Now they're going to be more honest. Now you're going to have better conversations, just builds better relationships. So that's what I like about those books. And I liked his book because it takes a cool approach, right? You're talking about negotiations and FBI stuff, and you're like, that's cool to start with. But he really breaks it down into how could you talk to your wife better? How could you talk to your kids better? I mean, you learn so much from these books that I think have a broader scope than just the typical continuing education we always focus on.
Yeah, that's huge. So I completely agree with that component where you, at the end just now, you said that athlete feels like I heard them. So you could say something to me, and I'll say, I'll just repeat back what you just said. If I do it in a certain manner where I'm just going through the motions, it might indicate that I'm listening to you, but I could still do it, and you would
Still
understand.
bullshit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still bullshit, right? If the person thinks or knows that you hear them, that's one thing. But then if they feel that you heard them. Like their ego's on display, their heart is on display, right? And they feel heard. Then it's like, okay, I could be a little bit more vulnerable and tell you
Hmm.
what's really going on. You're not going to be a complete dick. So if I can be a little bit more vulnerable, then we can get more to the root cause. That's why I do not engage on social media debates because one, it's one person trying to win their argument. I could put out something that's completely true and accurate, and it probably won't matter because now their ego is on display. I just hammered them for it. I didn't hear them at all, and then they gotta have their thought process on display and make them look essentially weaker. Instead of them saying, "Hey, you know what, Jim, you're right. Wow, I'm glad you pointed out. This has been a worthwhile discussion." Now it's all about can I win, right? So then it's just an absolute nightmare. I love that Chris Voss book. If you're listening to him talk, he's just a cool dude. You know, hostage negotiations about people's lives and life and death, and he's just super relaxed. And he goes into Harvard
Hmm.
and whoops everyone's ass at negotiating. For me, one of the easy things was or habits I've completely tried to work on is just labeling. So
Hmm.
my son Sam was here the other day. He said I have this conversation coming up with my friend. I have a concern I want to address with him. And I say, well, just label it. Hey, friend, I got this concern, but first and foremost, I want to be friends. So I want to make sure that's the backdrop. And if you think I'm out of line here,
Right.
just tell me to, tell me some of your business. But just label, hey, this is important, and I'm your friend. And so if you just say what's going to happen next, it kind of arms them. They're like, okay, this is what's going to happen next. I'm prepared, and you just it enables you to be a little bit more honest. And so I love how you guys do that there. That is huge. What's on the horizon for you? You know, you got Thanksgiving, then you got break, but next semester, spring semester is a little different than the fall semester.
Hmm.
What's on the horizon for you guys, and what do you talk about? What you guys are building over that Southern Illinois?
Yeah. So I mean, it's, we're in that period where our fall sports are done. So, we look forward to in the spring. That's our off season for those teams.
Mhm.
For, the team I primarily oversee is men's soccer. So, it's a time I get excited because that's, from start of semester, spring semester through essentially spring break, we get to train heavy. We get to train hard. It's the most condensed amount of training we've done. Weather here is pretty decent. We can still get outside, but they're in that 8 hour period, right? So the sport is involved, but it's not the primary, right? We tend to be the primary, and our coaching staff supports that. And then after spring break, they have spring ball and they play a little bit more, but you're still focused on we're going to play sore. We're going to train through a lot of these things. So I think for our fall sports, we get excited for the off season. We're primarily most of our sports are winter and spring sports. So our basketballs and wrestling are going heavy right now. But all of our other sports will come back. A lot of them will compete immediately, right? So we'll have tennis, we'll have track, golf, things like that. They're going to compete as soon as they show up. And then you have teams like baseball and softball that we get, 4 to 5 weeks of preseason for. So those are things that we're looking forward to, when the teams come back from winter break. And I'd say as a department, what I really liked, I think people always ask the mid-major, right? Like, how's it like at a mid-major compared to Power Four? Obviously, the resources are much different, right? Our facility is not, a $150 million facility that's massive with all these things. But the benefits of a mid-major is a lot of times it's much more conducive to your environment to work with the faculty around you. So we actually work really heavily with our kinesiology department. We're currently doing a research project. You brought up Whoop earlier. The director of our kinesiology department, with volleyball and women's soccer this past season, we did DEXA scans every 6 weeks. We did Wingate test, pre, mid, and post season, and then we had Whoop every single day in conjunction with our force plate testing, our velocity based training, and their GPS. Right. So we just did this. Very comprehensive assessment of every quantifiable objective metric we could to do a predictive analytic, essentially review this spring to try to identify how can we better improve or better prepare them for this next coming season. One of the points of the season that we should be more prepared for high levels of stress, or when we start to maybe see a dip in performance outcomes and sleep and strain scores, things like that. So that's a cool thing that I think we get at this level. And that's what I'm looking forward to in the spring, is continuing to kind of build. We have a lot of tools here. We use a lot of inertial training. We use our force plates, our velocity-based training system. We use the tech we have. It's not just like as a recruiting piece. But the hardest part for strength coaches is time. None of us have time to truly review that stuff and make it actionable data. So building out, more of a how do we consolidate all this data? How do we condense it? How do we simplify it? And then how do we project it quickly to where we can make informed decisions for the next day or for that session or for the next training block? So it's not just, stuff that you monitor and don't really, review or take a look at. So that's probably the thing I think we're most focused on and excited about in the spring semester.
Mm. Man, with all that data and inputs, it's easy to get from just hearing it could be a little overwhelming,
For sure.
and be like, shit, man, there's a lot going on here. Um, and it's easy, I would think, to say, hey, you know what? I'm not doing anything different because it's just I'm
Yeah.
overloaded. And I've had
Right.
a guy come to my gym that we run a gym also, and this guy's like, hey, let's talk about nutrition. I'm like, okay. He goes, Jim, I've been told carbs are terrible. I've been told carbs are great. I've been told Atkins, South Beach, blah blah blah. Like I'm overwhelmed. I do nothing. That would be hard. I haven't been a finance guy for most of my career. First 15 years now, I'm a strength and conditioning guy. When I hear all the data, I'm thinking, oh my God, that's a massive regression analysis model that
Hmm.
the quant guys, the statistic guys, would just take all the data, put it in an Excel sheet, put it in their formula, and then spit out the answer.
Hmm.
My one hand, my thought is maybe talk to your statistic department. Um, on the other hand, it's like it's like, well, shoot, I'm not even sure, but I'd love to hear what you guys come up with. It's a great problem to have. It's a great problem to have. I would say from 30,000 feet in the strength and conditioning world, a lot of times some things get told, hey, there's not valuable, there's no funding for it. A lot of strength coaches don't make any money. You intern for free all the time. So to
Hmm.
even get a GA, it's like to even run the data,
Hmm.
that could be tough. But maybe there's someone on the team that's like, they just like it. Because I'm a big dork. So I would love to play on the team, but also, oh man, I could be in charge of data. That'd be cool. So my God, there's so much going on, but that's what makes it really exciting and fun and cutting edge. Do you still what about yourself? Like you want to be a good coach, you got to be in shape and be able to handle the load, right?
Hmm.
Do you still train?
Yeah, I mean, I try to 6 days a week as much as I can.
Okay.
I think there was periods of time, I think when I first kind of took the administrative role here and I started to oversee a lot of things, that my training was definitely not a priority at all. And what I really appreciate is we do pretty frequent staff evaluations here, and we're very honest with each other. And every single time my staff was like, you need to train. Like you stopped training. You need to train. That was like consistently my weakness or growth area that kept coming up. So I've, the last couple of years, really tried to again make that a priority. And there's a lot of things we can get done, but there's also, I can still spare a half hour to get something in real quick and still prioritize that. Um, so I mean, I try to train as much as possible. I like to hit the bag. I have a Muay Thai bag at the house. I really like the combative side of things. Like grappling, was not a big fan of like jujitsu and wrestling, that kind of stuff. But I really like Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing. So I like hitting the bag, being active that way. And then I think I'm sure you feel it too, right? Like your body always hurts, so it's kind of finding what are the things that you can still attack really hard. So to be honest, in the last like year, I've re-got myself into machines and just more isolated training, and my body feels fantastic. I mean, I've been able to like actually, train myself to failure, to maximal failure from a tensile standpoint or just rep effort standpoint. And your body feels fine the next day. It's your joints aren't destroyed and your back still feels fine. So it's, finding that balance of, for the lower body, a lot of times it's, we have a flywheel, leg curl leg extension. Absolutely love it. We have flywheel seated calf raise. So hit those heavily because, I mean, you can build up good hypertrophy and strength. And and again, not have a lot of compressive force on the joints, and then a lot of like sled work and that kind of stuff, just to make sure the lower body is still going through full range of motion and different angular positions where you have to produce force and receive force. Yeah, I mean training should be important, right? And I got young boys. I got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and uh, the 6-year-old for sure loves sports. So every night, even when I'm tired and I get home, he's like, "Hey, let's go play soccer. Let's play basketball. Let's wrestle. Let's do something." So if my body's not ready for it, I'm not being a good dad. So I think that's kind of the new focus is how can I make sure, like physically, if you said, "Hey, you want to meet up and go play pickleball, or you want to meet up and play," I feel like I could do that and not be worried, like, "Oh, I don't know if I could do that." Just making sure the body feels to the point where if somebody called me out on something, like, "Yeah, let's go do it right now."
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I've lived that life where I wasn't healthy at all, and I'm
Hmm.
setting a bad example as a father. And then um, when I tell people our athlete builder model, the head and the body, the mindset, knowledge, and teammates, the training, nutrition, recovery applies to accountants and applies to
Hmm.
doctors and applies to
Yeah.
school teachers. That if you're physically active, you're going to be better in all the other components. And it's true, just from the cortisol, the stress relief, the actual feeling, the endorphin release. So super super huge. And I love that. And it's there's no getting around it. You can tell the people that mentally they're a little they're different, whether they're in shape
Yeah.
or really overweight. It's completely
Yeah.
different. If you're
You-
trained,
it's easy to say no, right? I mean, if
oh
if
yeah,
if you're not feeling it and you still make yourself do it, you're going to be more likely to do the harder things. And if you get if especially on yourself, right? If you can say no to yourself, that's not a good thing. It's because now
sure,
you're going to say no to everything.
yeah, yep. What about when you are training? If you're training and let's say you're lifting, what do you have to listen to?
I mean, I don't get a whole lot of choice, to be honest. Here, it's whatever the athletes are listening to. Myself, I'm uh, ride or die '90s grunge.
There you
Grunge
go.
alt rock. That's my stuff. Bush is like one of my favorite bands of all time. And if I say that now, all the athletes are like, "What the hell did you just say?" I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
"Bush, dude. 16 Stones, one of the best albums ever made." So yeah, definitely '90s. Anything in the '90s, like even rap, I'd prefer the '90s, but '90s grunge alt rock is my go-to.
Awesome. What's a bucket list? For you, place you haven't been yet. You want to go try something fun, maybe with you and your wife or whoever.
Yeah. I'd really like to go to Ireland. Never been there. I've been to Scotland, a little bit, like in Europe. We've kind of gone some places, but Ireland's the one that I haven't gone to that I really like to. I'd say New Zealand, but man, like that 18-hour flight and just like that part of it just sounds terrible. Well, is it one of those? Is it worth it to make that travel? But I'd say Ireland's probably top of the list.
Nice. You got a favorite sports movie or two?
I mean, probably OG, the program, from a football standpoint. That's by far one of my favorite ones.
Starting defense,
Um,
place at the table,
you know it.
right?
Um, and then from like a comedy standpoint, I mean, Adam Sandler with The Water Boy and Happy Gilmore and that kind of stuff. I mean, those are go-tos I could watch every single day.
Well, I'm 50, and I was in the theater when the program came out, and I,
Yeah.
I saw the deleted scene when they're laying down in the road
Oh yeah.
playing chicken with the car. Then they'll
Hmm.
hope that the car doesn't change lanes and run them over. So yeah, big. My wife and I, we watch that movie right before college football starts every
Yeah.
fall
Oh yeah.
every
Yeah. It'll get
fall.
jamped up for sure. Yeah.
In terms of comedies, being from Ohio, man, it's all going to begin and end with Major League
Yeah.
and Ricky Vaughn. So, how
Mhm.
about a favorite sport to watch?
Football is still my favorite sport to watch for sure.
Athlete to watch? Any sport could be alive, could be dead, doesn't matter.
I mean, favorite athlete to watch. I mean, I'd probably go back to again. I have a deep respect for combat sports. I probably like say George St. Pierre, like GSP. Somebody kind of in that early UFC, like when they were really kind of finding their popularity, that was just an ultimate athlete and really well rounded.
Yeah, I remember in the '90s, I was watching Tank Abbott with no teeth in the big boy weight class in the early stages of UFC. Oh man,
Yeah. Or
how
even
about
Gracie, Hoist Gracie having to fight Tank Abbott, who's 350 pounds.
right?
Those are the days. Yeah.
The whole Gracie family, just legends, legends. You got a book recommendation? We talked about a few.
I mean, I definitely said to me, probably the most impactful book I've ever read is Think Again from Adam Grant.
Gotcha. Uh, this could be alive or dead, a real person or fictional. You got a superhero for us?
My favorite superhero? Or just like somebody I want to hang out with. I would say Chris Farley in a heartbeat if it was somebody I want to hang out with. This passed away.
Some people say
Um,
it's like Michael Jordan or it's Wolverine, or they'll say like, hey, it's my mother. She's my hero.
uh,
So
yeah, yeah,
wherever you want to take it.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I probably err on the side more of sport influence. Uh, for me, it's Bo Jackson. Like when I was a kid, it was Bo Jackson was his NFL, he was MLB. It's just all around the best athlete I've ever seen.
Bo knows, right? Bo knows.
Hmm
How about a villain?
I think Heath Ledger's version of the Joker is no one's going to beat that.
Yeah. And there's been some awesome ones, and that role alone lends itself for the actors to really take it to some places. And I thought Heath did an outstanding job.
Hmm
I always say it's Hannibal Lecter with Silence of the Lambs, but
Yeah.
I like the crazy in both those characters. What's your favorite lift?
Me personally, favorite lift is some kind of vertical pull. So like a pull up, I do like the wife and I like to rock climb. So I think using different grip attachments, things like that. For prescribing for athletes, it would probably be a kettlebell swing.
All right, you got a quote for us?
I'd say probably one, again, it resonates around like return to play, but uh, output is who you are on your best day. Readiness is who you are today.
Beautiful. Where can people find you?
Mostly just Instagram and LinkedIn are the only two like socials. For Instagram, the handle is at Coach Jamison HPC, and then LinkedIn, it's just my name, Mark Jamison.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Mark, I'll stick on here for a couple more minutes after we say goodbye, but really had a great time today. Learned a bunch of things. I like the part the part that was different for me was making sure the calories are right, even though you're injured and you're coming back to return to play. That was new for me, so that's helpful, and I'm gonna adopt that and look into that. And then, as you can tell, I'm a big nerd. I haven't read all the books behind me, but a lot of them, the others are in the queue. So the ones that you recommended, I'm gonna check those out. Shout out Dan Braun for connecting us, and I saw Missy Mitchell Macbeth. You guys are connected there, so you're surrounded by
Yep.
good people. It's easy to do awesome things, and it makes my life easier when I got smart people like you on the show. So I really appreciate it. For anyone that wants to get a hold of us, keep doing the same thing. info@athlete-builder.com. That's my email. And keep sending us your questions, and we'll send back our best answers. But Mark, man, thanks for the gift today. Thanks for all the effort, man. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.